Talk a little bit about how to handle negative exponents. This is a fairly quick discussion. We can talk a little bit about why it works, but I want to make sure that we cover both the why and the how that it works. So the question is, how do I understand the following expression? What is 4 to the power negative 2? What do you think? What's your initial gut reaction? It doesn't have to be right. Just what's the first thing that springs to mind?
Positive 16.
Positive 16. Do we have other nominations? What else might it be, Spencer?
1 over 16.
1 over 16. Anyone have other ideas? There's another really common answer to this question that jumps into people's gut reaction. Yeah, that's the other common answer. Negative 16, right? So our question is, which one of these three things is it? Because it can't be all three. All three of them could be wrong, but they certainly all can't be right. So we have to figure out how to handle an exponent that shows up a negative number that shows up in an exponent. So here's how I like to think about it. Whatever 4 to the negative 2 is, I don't know what it is for the moment. I'm going to pretend I don't know what it is for a moment. But whatever it is, my question is, what's going to happen if I multiply it by 4 to the positive 2? Maybe I'll take that positive out of there. Let me just write 4 to the 2. What's going to happen if I multiply these two exponentials together?
That's just 4 times 4.
Careful. What happens when I multiply two monomial expressions with the same base? What do I do with the exponents when I multiply? Yeah, there we go. So now the exponent rules are coming back to us. I'm multiplying two expressions with the same base together, which means what I'm going to do is I'm going to add the exponents. But what do I get when I add the exponents negative 2 and 2? 0. So when I multiply these two things together, I'm going to get 4 to the 0. Now, tell me, what is 4 to the power 0?
0. 4.
It's 1. Yeah, so we could have had a poll on that one, too, the common answers for which are 0, 1, and 4. But the thing to take to the bank from the last time we talked about this is that raising a non-zero quantity to the 0th power always results in 1. It's what I like to call the multiplicative version of nothingness. It's 1 because 1 is the number that doesn't change any quantity that it multiplies. Right? That's what having a 0 in the exponent does, is it produces this neutral quantity from the perspective of multiplication. So whatever 4 to the negative 2 is, when I multiply it by 4 to the positive 2, the result, the product, needs to be 1. Have I changed anybody's opinions yet about what 4 to the negative 2 is? What's 4 to the positive 2? Let's just get that out of the way. Yeah, I think we can all agree that 4 to the power positive 2 is 16. Have I changed anyone's opinion about what 4 to the minus 2 is yet?
Can't be positive 16 the first one.
It can't be positive 16, because if it were, then 16 times 16 would be 1. 16 times 16 is not 1, so I've changed Joe's mind about his guess. So now it's between these two answers. Have I changed anyone else's mind? It's a number which, when we multiply it by 16, gives us 1. Can it be negative 16? If I put negative 16 here, I get negative 16 times 16. Negative times the positive has got to be negative. It can't be positive 1. So negative 16 is out. So the only guess that's still on the board that works, that might work, is 1 over 16. Let's check it. If I put in this box here 1 over 16, what happens when I multiply 1/16 by 16? I get 1. Just multiply. How do you multiply fractions, by the way? Straight across. So 1/16 times 16 over 1 is going to be 16 over 16. And that is another name for 1. So that does work out. So at the end of the day, 4 to the minus 2 is in fact 1 over 16. And the reason it's 1 over 16 is I'm going to put one intermediate step in between here. This is going to be the step that you end up using more often. And the step is, anytime you see a negative exponent, we can turn that negative exponent positive. Turn the negative exponent to a positive. And all we need to do to make that happen is just to take this power and slide it from its original position. And its original position, if we put an over 1 here, which we can always do, originally this quantity is up in a numerator. But the 16 that we get in our answer ends up in the denominator instead. So what you can take to the bank is that we can turn a negative exponent positive by moving it from the numerator to the denominator. By moving from the numerator to the denominator.